Hi and welcome everybody. I just want to make sure that those of you down on Sim at the jousting fields can hear me. Please give me a quick heads up in the Comraich roleplay chat room if you can hear me down on Sim. And for those of you in Discord that are actually also logged in to Second Life in the Comraich roleplay Sim group chat, can you let me know? Hear you loud and clear on Discord. So we're going to go through the process for this. I'm going to take a little bit of an introduction to bring everybody up to speed on what we've done and where we've come from and the work and the process that has been gone on, and talk a little bit about opening. In the meantime, I do encourage you, if you have questions, to prepare the questions. I would like you to post those questions into the Comraich Roleplay Sim group chat. Even if you are on Discord, so I only have one place to look. However, we are still looking for a secretary who will copy and paste the questions out of the group chat into my IM, so I don't have to take such long pauses reading back to make sure. Snow, thank you so much that you're going to handle that. Okay, secretary has been found. High heels included. All right, so here we go. This is Comraich. Comraich is a fiction that was originally created back in 2004, though the Zubiri date back to 2002. They were the first custom race that I ever wrote for a roleplay community. It has had two previous runs, one on Ultima Online and then the second on a Neverwinter Nights roleplay server. This is the first time Comraich has come to Second Life, and it's gone through some changes. This is the first time it's been a primarily political roleplay. It's been a dystopia in the past, as well as a more high fantasy lore in the past. I did rewrite all of the lore by hand, meaning I didn't copy and paste. I retyped everything out. I left a lot on the editing floor. The previous two versions had a lot of player submissions. I really am pro player canon and player fanon as part of what we're doing, which is why we have a wiki, because we couldn't keep all of this lore on a website. We really needed something that can handle hundreds of pages. I left nearly 500 pages of lore on the editing floor when we put this together. So everybody who's groaning at the 250 pages, you're welcome. Rolf, I, and Bane started this project back in September. We did two of the cities are completely custom mesh, and the third is partial custom mesh. If you've not had a chance to visit the sim or explore around, we are using experience teleporters so that you travel as seamlessly as possible from one area to the other area. Areas are layered like a wedding cake up in the sky. So you go up from level 0 to level 1000 to 2000 to 3000. We have 4 towns in addition to the ground and its little willow wine town. Hopefully, the plan is April that we will have Panchinea in. So we will have our Jizani town in as well. I just need a break. So we've been building pretty much straight for 6 months. My hands hurt, I'm tired, I'm cranky. I'm ready to role play. It took me 2 hours to set up a rental door today because I just kept staring at the screen. So it's just been exhausting. But I'm really, really excited for all of this. I can't wait to get role playing. I'm looking forward to the game. David is doing his very best to have it ready for us in time, or at least most of it ready. Obviously, we've had surgeries and airplane tickets and all kinds of other real-life emergencies that have taken a lot of his time. So I know everybody will be patient as the game comes to fruition. Opening ceremonies are on the 10th. We will open on the 8th and the 9th. We will have bloggers here. People will be getting their real roleplay shoes on. But on the 10th, we'll have the coronation for the Deerling King. I'm going to talk a little bit about why this is such a big deal and what it means in the fiction so that everybody has kind of a starting line. Because we're going to be using the RPCSS, the Roleplay Conquest Simulation System, to manage the behind-the-scenes communications with NPCs that factions and noble houses have at their disposal, we have put the kingdoms in distress. I have intentionally put our poor and very polite kings and queens who have offered to come and role play these roles for us in a state of conflict. So the Deerling King is playing a Daub Gentry, and the last couple of times a Daub Gentry has come to the throne, lots of all kinds of crazy evilness and attacks on Zubin have come and battles with Valgard. So Daub Gentry kings are something the population as a whole fears. They're not happy with it. Scares them. We don't know what's going to happen. I have not told him how to roleplay his role. He has complete control over how much of a nutcase he wants to be. He has no script. All he has to do is survive, like the rest of you. The Arjot faction involves our beautiful Phaedra as the Erasu Queen, and our wonderful and patient Sariel as the Priest King of the Zubiri, the Zephyrin Zubiri. Now see, when they were selected, it was understood that there was going to be no children, because what we have with the Zephyrin and the Zubiri, the Zephyrin and the Erasu, is a matriarchal and patriarchal society to which a conflict of customs would happen over who and what inherits and keeps which name. So these two people might be willing to rule side by side, especially with the threat of a dark gentry king coming to the throne, but they're not going to just fully integrate. They're still, and have been for centuries, in conflict. Unfortunately, rumor goes around that our lovely queen is knocked up. This should send anybody living in Arjot, Erasu, or Zephyrin up in arms. We encourage everyone to communicate their displeasure at this situation to their king and queen, and we wish the king and queen a great deal of luck. That leaves us with our Valgarin king. And I'm afraid I have bad news. The wonderful gentleman who I asked to play the Valgarin king received a medical diagnosis that has restricted him from being able to keep his role. Unfortunately, that means that Ost and Siggy and I are going to do our best to keep that Wistari faction moving forward. We're not going to replace him. We're not going to kill him off. That's a little, I'm not ready to do that for OC reasons. You'll have to excuse me. So what we will be doing instead is, because that throne is going to be in conflict, he will be locked in a tower because he's gone crazy. Paranoid, crazy. So he's locked in a tower. That's his fiction. And we will be hosting an emergency all thing that will happen on the 11th at what is known as Vortigern's Cairn. Vortigern's Cairn is the hill on the way to Valgard. There is a campfire there, and that's where a lot of the Valgarans have been playing. That hill is where Vortigern, who was the last Valgaran king to invade Tel Rhaedor, is supposedly buried. And we're going to hold an emergency all thing there and vote in, or begin the voting in process of a new king. However, I do want everyone to keep in mind that we are actually playing this game. So it doesn't matter who we vote in if somebody wants to make it a case of martial conquest over who rules. So all of this whole story is completely up for you players to decide. There is no existing storyline that admins will be reading note cards or babysitting. You have all the tools and all the control in your hands to drive your storyline. I intend to play, not read note cards. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to open up the floor for questions. It is currently 3:16, so you only had to listen to me for 10 minutes. There's no such thing as a Frem Queen. Sorry, you could try and be queen, but good luck with that. You're gonna need a faction for that. All right, so does anybody have any questions that they would like me to answer? So Corvus, Will asks, will banner houses and minor factions eventually be added to the wiki as well? Yes, Corvus, and let me explain this to everybody who is hoping to make a new faction. The situation as it stands is it is about 6 to 8 hours to set up a faction. From the point of conversation and negotiation, it takes a very long time to get a faction set up. And I need to handhold the process in the beginning because I'm the primary lore author. Consequently, I had to put a cap on the number of factions that were created before we open. If you want to create a faction, either as a banner house or a minor faction, you are encouraged to join an existing faction, and you will then, in role play, be granted lands and spin off into your own faction. This faction will be documented on the wiki, approved via the application process for factions, and entered into the game so that you can play along with everybody else. If you are interested in creating your own faction, be prepared to have your backstory and your application submitted. I'm not reading anything until this is built and we are all set up, at which case I will be releasing 2 factions a week on a first-come, first-served basis. Does that answer your question, Corvus? Yes, Connor, this is the appropriate group to post questions. If anybody else has questions, please go ahead and post them. And Snow, please do remember to copy and paste those questions into my IM so that if the chat goes crazy, I don't have to take huge long pauses to go back and reading everything. I'm sorry, I haven't gotten an IM from you then. So I'm not sure which IM you're posting it to. All right, so I now see a post from you. Does anybody else have a question? Big long pause here. Well, while we're taking a pause, this Q&A is brought to you by Sutton's Mead, the very best mead. Apparently Yrsa stole it from Odin on her way out after the Aesir Vanir War and has brought Sutton's Mead, the very best mead, here to you and Comraich. So question, Circer, if our faction leader isn't present and we're looking to create a faction, who should we go through to conduct the necessary RP to gain our faction lands? It is my understanding that all factions have somebody who is handling that faction. Would you tell me what the faction is? Because I'll tell you who's handling it. We do have 1 or 2 factions that are in threat at the moment. I don't know where their leaders are, so I have to talk to them. But if you're in the north, I think we have everybody under control. So, what's your faction? Well, there shouldn't be a situation with a faction leader who is not present. Everybody should have a backup. If they don't have a backup, they're going to lose their faction. So, everybody should be there. If you have any problems with that, staff should know who's handling factions for people. All right, does anybody else have questions, or am I going to make up more strange advertising? Aha! Connor asks, if I'm creating a character who is an IC sibling for an existing approved character, should I do the starter app or the support app? The answer to that is that character that you are creating a sibling for a member of a faction or not? If they are a member of a faction, you'll want to do a faction support app. You'll want to do a support app so that the faction leader can approve it. If you are going to just be, two peddlers that are brother and sister, and, one's named Emmy and the other's named Bob, and you're just going to wander around being peddlers, no, you can do a starter app. You don't need a support app. So then you'll need a support app because you're going to be in the Fenrison faction, which is where Bear is. So you will want to do a support application. All right. Next questions. If there's anything you want to know more about, I will certainly expound upon it. There's a great big pause in here. You're going to have to take out Snow so people who, when they get the YouTube video, don't have to listen to me sitting here waiting for questions. I can go over the rental rooms. Rental rooms are a little complicated, so that's actually a really good question, May. Rental rooms have two types of rooms. One is single bedrooms, and the other is faction council rooms. You cannot have a faction council room unless you're a faction, and that's an approved faction. So everybody else is being offered primarily a room. It's a long room. It's large enough to do a room and a half in. There's the deco that we've been doing has things like a kitchen with maybe a living room, a bedroom with a seating area, or a bedroom with a bathing area. Doing a whole bunch of really great scenes for you. I am not a big fan of players hanging out in their skybox houses and not role playing. I really prefer that players are on sim and role playing. Also, just want to ask people, please don't IM me your questions directly. Please post them in the Comraich Roleplay Sim group. It's just too much for me to follow, tracking everybody down. Snow will move them all over directly into one list. Sorry, let's go back. So we will have rooms. They will be skyboxes. They will be accessible off the doors in the sim. So as you walk around in Whitebriar and Arjot and Yarn Hall, you will see doors that go into faux houses. I will be connecting those doors up to rental boxes, and you will be able to rent that box. Every box will be 100 lindens per week, and it will eventually come with a reser. So you'll be able to pick your different scenes. If you want to add prims, you can go up to the rental box, the rental room that has a teleporter off where you land on sim, where the landing zone is. There's a teleporter right inside near the group join. You click there, you're going to go up into Addie's cool little dojo building, and you'll be able to rent add-on prims. I'm in the process of setting that up now. If you want a rental room, you go up to that rental box, grab the note card, fill out the form, and send it to me, and I will prioritize setting up doors for everybody for rentals. Does anybody have any other questions on that rental? I'm not sure that was completely clear, but I promise you, up in that box, there is a set of instructions and a rental note card that will explain the process to you. And if it's still not clear in a day or two, I'll update it all again. All right, yes, send them direct to me or the mailbox, makes no difference. They both come in absolutely the same way. All right, so we have another question. Snow. Okay, so Lova Aziza Anders asks, a friend asked about the Jaizani lore. Some of it is missing. Will there be more expanded, and if so, when? We realize that it is the newest group added in. I'm not sure what aspects were missing. When I read through it, it looked really good, though maybe we're in the process of reorganizing it. I know Gabby was doing that and then she got sick, so maybe we have a problem with it not being reorganized completely, but I'll check that later today and finish it up or put it back to the way it was if she's gotten to a crazy mixed state. But it should be complete there. If there is more to be added, that will go through Mother and Renee. The feedback forums on the application portal is a really great place for you to ask questions or send submissions for lore. Everybody will have a chance to read it. I'll kind of have a group discussion about whether or not that's a good ad, and then it may be added to the wiki or it may be rejected. All right. Next question is from Neshma. I have a question of siblings. Say a character is part of a faction and your sibling does not want to be part of that faction your character is from because it's not the family faction. All right, so let's just acknowledge right off the bat, there are no rules that say what faction your character can or cannot be allowed in. You can be in any faction you want, just the way you can join any political party anywhere in the United States, even from Texas. So you can join whatever faction you want, work for that faction as a spy, as a friend, as a ward, as a political support of their bid for the throne. There is no restrictions. You can be in any faction that will accept you. Will accept you. Please remember, faction leaders have control over who is and who is not in their faction. If you don't get along with your faction leader and they ask you to leave, I'm not going to tell them they have to take you. So remember, your IC and OC behavior is part of which faction you're in. The prim allowance on renting a fully furnished store is 10. If you want to add more prims, you will have to go and add those prims up in the rental box, which are not yet available, but will be released soon. Okay, we're at 1:28. Do we have more questions now? Okay, so Corvus asks, is the combat system that is currently in place for one-on-one battles the one that is planned for small conflicts? Corvus, can you define what you mean by small conflict before I make an inappropriate assumption? So I'm going to move on. I'll come back to Corvus. Lova asks, fashion, do we have to stick to our area if we are traveling? What does fashion have to do with stick to your area if traveling? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. There's no restrictions on what you wear. I know some Sims want to be like, if you're a Deerling, you have to dress like a Deerling, and if you're a Valgaran, you have to dress like a Valgaran. You guys can wear whatever you want, with the understanding that in character, other players, other characters may mock you. Meaning, my character, who's an Alfarian, thinks any Alfarian walking around with an insanely ornate headdress deserves to be mocked for their head finery. And my character will mock their head finery because this is the Middle Ages, and in general, while I, as the sim admin, is not enforcing dressing and fashion, I do kind of expect you guys will. Because that's the lore, that's the fiction, that's the standard. Now, it's an excellent point, Lova, because if I'm from Valgard and I'm used to wearing velvet and fur, and I go to Arjot, I am not going to keep walking around in velvet and fur. I'm going to be like, I need another dress because this isn't going to work. I'm dying. Oh my God, how do you live in this heat? So fashion has no restrictions. There's no rules on fashion as to what you can and cannot wear. It is completely up to you guys to enforce that to whatever degree you want to enforce it. So Corvus qualifies one-on-one up to 3 or 4 combatants. Yes, that system is designed to handle up to 3, 4, 5 combatants. That is correct. Keeping in mind that with the exception of a ganking on one person, most of those are going to break down into side-by-side multiple combat. So unless it's 4-on-1, if it's 2-on-2 or 3-on-2 or 1-on-1, that's all that will exist. That is the system. Real combat, the whole process, the true combat, the real thing that is supposed to be part of this process is the RPCSS system where armies are involved. This is about armies. This is not about highwaymen attacking each other. If there are situations that call for multiple fights, we'll use those dice. I don't imagine a lot of those situations, but I never know what players are going to do with things, so perhaps it could be more. All right? Any other questions? Let's see where we are. All right, so question. I'm not entirely clear about what threat the rumor of a pregnant queen in Zubin presents. I'm under the impression that neither priest, king, nor queen are hereditary, but rather divinely chosen. Does the pregnancy put that practice at risk? Is it to be assumed that they may want a child to inherit their reign? I'm trying to figure out why we care other than being socially, religiously affronted. You are socially and religiously affronted. That is the answer. That is the primary core. It is socially and religiously abhorrent to crossbreed those two races right now, and especially not at that level. Commoners may do that. She's not supposed to have sex with them. It's not that kind of marriage. It is well, no, she doesn't have to necessarily remain a virgin. She just can't have children with him. So maybe she's pregnant from one of those handsome, greased-up gladiators. We have no idea who she's pregnant with or if she actually is pregnant. She's probably pregnant, because if she wasn't pregnant, we wouldn't have all this conflict. But we don't know who she's pregnant from. That will be the fun that we all get to figure out and decide what we're going to do about the fact that we have a matriarchal queen potentially pregnant from a patriarchal man, and what the results of the offspring means religiously, politically, socially. Yeah, everybody should be completely up in arms. So I'm not silently judging you. Okay. All right, I'm going to see what our next question is. Snow asks. Okay. Yep. All right, I've caught up on that one. Looks like I am caught up. It was a big question. Satama. So it looks like our questions are starting to slow down. Is there any uniform economic system on Sim? Yes, but not at the micro level, only at the macro level, which means factions have currency and money to do things with that. Money to hire mercenaries, to bribe people, to engage in hiring spies. They have coin that they spend to pay their soldiers. It's at the macro level. It's the big level as far as noble house, court systems, and financial system. At the minor level, I'm just going to say I don't really like coin systems and just my day-to-day role play. I don't like systems that make me have to go to the bathroom, or systems that tell me when I have to eat or have to keep track of my individual coins. I kind of like to just be treated like I'm an adult, that I'm a reasonable role player, and that I'm going to role play something appropriate to my backstory. If if for whatever reason 90% of the player base is like, no, we don't want freeform roleplay with currency, we all want to nickel and dime it, I'll look for a system. I'll be bitching, complaining, and whining the entire time that you're making me look for something. So hopefully not. I don't enjoy that. I just want to play. If I want to roleplay being broke, I'll roleplay being broke. But at the bigger level, okay, at the absolutely bigger level, it is very, very important that gold is tracked as to recognizing what kind of financial power faction houses have. And you can take your clue from your faction house. So if your faction house goes broke because they're in debt to the bank, you should probably role play you're broke too, because the whole faction house, we have a problem. Yeah, there's not actually the Iron Bank here, but we have something that works kind of in that same way, where if you get in debt to the bank, they own you. So that's some fun stuff. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to close this out at about 3:45. I'm going to take the last 15 minutes to introduce some of the races. All right, so let's see what we have next. Wynn, can we talk about the faction lead's responsibility regarding roleplay? Sure, I did write this up in a note card, a link that I put on the website. Just give me a second. I'm going to go grab that link so that people can also have that to read along. Where did I put the damn page? Okay, what is known? Blah, blah, blah. How to read. What is your role? Okay, so it was under expectations. I can't even find it. I'm not going to find it now. If you have a copy of it, I think I forgot to link it down. I was waiting for you all to read it. Player create. Could you link that for me if you have that, May? Okay, so what we're going to do is talk about the fact that factions are in essence or intentioned to be noble houses playing the game. Having a faction that is larger than 3 people gains you nothing. The 3 people to play the game is where your power rides and those people playing it. If you have people that are in your faction and they want to play the game, they need to spin off into their own faction. Faction leaders are not expected to provide role play for you. They are asked to do 2 things for role play. Number 1, they are asked to set aside 2 hours a week where they or one of the council members are available for you to come role play with them on whatever priority they do. They want to do first come, first serve, or if they wanted to do triage as, what's more important, that's completely up to them to figure out how to do it. No, let's see. Here we go. Hold on. Role play guidelines. I will be adding this to one of the wiki links to make sure we have it. Let me drop this here. So if everybody wants to, they can read over this. And if somebody would also drop that in Discord, that would be great. And so what this says is that their expectation is to provide 2 hours a week where they're available and 1 role play event a month open to the community. I figure if we've got 30 or 40 factions and every faction is doing 1 event a month and 2 hours available a week, we should have plenty of role play going on. So it's very important to understand that what goes on in the game will be communicated to you. This is something that Morbid and I went over when we were talking yesterday or the day before. So I'm going to take a minute to just kind of explain how you are kept in the loop with what's going on in the larger storyline. So the faction is comprised of 3 people: the general or leader, master of coin, and the spy master. You can name them whenever you want. I don't really care. They engage in actions once a week. Well, it takes about 10 minutes, not a very time-consuming game. And they put those actions in. And their actions are things like move their forces, put a spy in, try and bribe somebody, all basic medieval political machinations going on. At the end of the week, which is planned on running on Sunday at midnight, that morning when you log back in, refreshed and excited to see what happened, you'll see the results of the actions you put in. You'll only see the actions for what you put in, not the actions for your spy master, not the actions for your coin master. Those actions are hidden from you so they can betray you, cheat, do whatever they want, work on behalf of some other faction with you not having any idea. If you are not a member of that faction, not a member of that faction council, or if that faction council comes, you didn't get the information back, there'll be a 2 or 3 delay, at which time the system's rumor system kicks in. And those in the faction will receive rumors of what happened. And it's broken out into who, what, and where. You will not receive all 3 unless you get a really good roll, but primarily some portion of a rumor will be passed on to you in the faction for things that affected your faction. So you'll hear rumor that there was an attack on your home village. You don't know who. You may hear that a spy was caught in your home village. A couple of days later, the entire world will receive a limited version of that rumor system. And is this drive, rather than having it in one big note card or 4 big note cards broken out to individual factions, everybody gets a little piece of the pie. Everybody has something that they can pull together, now role play with, figure out, and plan on how to solve. So this is part of what the faction lead's expectations are, because unlike in other situations where staff have to handle all of your actions up front, and there's this drive to have to stay involved with that, you have to have your pulse on what everybody is doing, or you're going to be totally left out of the picture. We don't do it that way. This happens more kind of on the back end, where as the factions go in, the information comes out that you are now able to grab and drive forward. So there's a lot more involvement that goes on. All right, so I'm going to come back to that. Anybody has further questions on the faction responsibility, they can read that on the page that we have linked. And I am going to read our next question, which is from Caitlin. I was wondering in terms of common reference, so store owners can set prices, not in terms of spending power. Okay, Caitlin, that's a good point. If anybody wants to standardize or put out a proposal for a standardized shopping list, I would probably recommend something straight out of Dungeons and Dragons. Up to you guys. I think Bear and I actually talked about it at one point. Check with Bear. I think Bear had a pretty decent system that somebody from another shard was using that established kind of those baselines. I totally lost track of it. Okay? So, Rule asks, I wanted to know how the dice system is, in a sense, monitored. For instance, there is no backstory section, at least in a standard application. I applied as a mercenary, though my character's training would make him, for all intents and purposes, a knight. I am curious in regards to how should I roll. I noticed several other options in that regard. Okay. Let's just talk about dice again. There's a group of people where the dicing is important to you. And I appreciate that that's important to you. I would like to say I expect everybody to simply play fairly. If you come up against someone who you feel is not playing fair, god moding, metagaming, power role playing, and you win the fight, kill them and submit the role play. And we will catch those that are not being fair or misunderstood the situation at that time. Otherwise, I don't intend to overcomplicate the process. Okay? If it turns out that for some reason people are not able to deal with a basic dice system, I'll look at changing it, but I don't want to do more right now. So if you're a knight and you believe your backstory and your role-playing your backstory involves the 10 years of being a knight, well then roll as a knight. I'm not going to call you a liar if that's what you're role-playing. So let's all dress like a knight, have armor, be a knight, roll as a knight. I think we can handle it with a certain degree of courtesy and respect because, in all honesty, the game is not at the dice level. The game is at the faction level. I hope that answers your question. We'll come back to it if that is not an okay result in a month or two. All right? Caitlin asks, will there be individual faction groups created? I am not going to manage that. There is a link also here on the website for the Comraich group page. You can read here. If your faction leader wants to create a group and manage that group, that's on them. There could be 30 groups. I am not managing that. I don't even have that many groups left. So, no, I'm not involved. If they want to do it, they can do it. I'm not involved in that. That's too much. Sure. Snow. Connor can roll as a loaf of ciabatta if he would like. The ciabatta, however, would fall under the all other role unless it happens to be a loaf of night ciabatta, in which case I really do expect you to roleplay as a knight of bread rather than a knight of meat, so that we all understand that your roleplay is appropriate to your role. Anything else? That was a joke, by the way. Yes. Spada Haraldson of Clan Fenrisson, so yes, you must roleplay being a bread knight if you are going to take the knight role as your ciabatta. Any other questions? Sorry. Yes, Tart, you can say I'm sexy anytime you want. All right. We have Bear, Boar, Bread, and his wife, Bunny. Well, Bunny, however, can only roll as a soldier because we all know that the bunny isn't actually a knight. No matter how many great big fangs it has, it's not actually a knight. Okay. All right. We're running out of time. We're getting a little goofy. Do we have any other serious questions? I noticed the Spy Master, Coin Master, and the main lead are roles. What about a politician type role coming soon? The Coin Master is primarily the politician role. If you look, let me go grab it. If you look on this list here under the game, it will give you a list of what the actions are. Blah, 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 blah. Actions in the game. So if you look at this actions in the game here, no, Connor, I needed that. You will see that the Coin Master role has a lot of political actions involved in it. Diplomacy, consolidating power, establishing vassalages. But there's also some politics also involved in the Spy Master. So those are the roles we have. How you spin them and how you roleplay spinning them really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you can only do what the game lets you do. We are, however, for version 2 or version 3, looking at adding a divinity role. And depending on where we head, we may also look at adding in a court magician role. No further details, but it's on the to be discussed plate. Well, the all-knowing barkeeper role. All right. So, no further details about the whole court magician. No battle mages. No spoilers. Gotta wait. Who has any other questions? I'm tired. I gotta go back to putting rentals up. Was this helpful? Rentals, yeah. Is everybody having fun? You know, you can all role play, right? You don't have to stand in the landing. We can always dance. You can't have a spell blade. God, have this conversation. It's overpowered. No OP. Yes, actually, you can be a god. Let's talk about that one, because everybody loves that idea. How do you get to be a god in Comraich? You don't think I have an answer, do you? I do, actually. You have to win all 3 thrones. Control all 3 thrones, and your character will engage in apotheosis, become a deity, will be entered into Comraich lore, and you'll lose your character. You have to be prepared to lose your character in Comraich. You don't get to role play it, but you do get to become a god. So have fun with that. Does everybody understand why that happens? There's a little bit of lore that some people have missed, which is that there are kingstones scattered all over Comraich, and they are divinity magical power. And so the reason why Arjot's where it is, and why everybody fights over Arjot, why Tel Ray's where it is, and why Yarnhall's where it is, because there are great big huge kingstones that can't be moved that power your divine gods. So to become a divine god, you have to control all 3 of them, in which case you engage in apotheosis. All right. Can I close down now? I'm tired. An hour of this is about as much as I can do. I know a lot of you are being patient, waiting for me to finish up and have questions to ask me. I appreciate everybody staying out of my wool as I finish building. I don't have time to answer that one, Corvus. No, You can claim it is. Maybe. No dice bonuses, though. Yes, the sim opens on the 8th. Opening ceremonies will be at the Deerling Castle on the 10th, unless I haven't finished building the throne room, in which case we're going to crown him here. That's up to you guys, Slova. For now, I would say that everybody's going to tell Ray, so go roleplay and tell Ray. They can go back to Zubin. All right. All right. I'm logging off, guys. Jacob, you cannot have tart. That is not an option. She's taken. I'm going to close down Discord now. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you all later.